Chapter 6. Confession. The sky was a pale wash of twilight as Ash sat by the campfire, staring into the flickering flames. The distant sounds of the forest, the chirping of insects, the rustling of leaves, filled the silence. But inside his head, there was only noise. A constant, overwhelming cacophony of thoughts and emotions that he couldn't push aside any longer. He had tried. For days, he had tried to pretend that nothing was wrong, that everything was normal. He had laughed with Misty and Brock, trained with Pikachu, and gone through the motions of their journey, all while hiding the truth. But now, it was too much. The secret was too heavy, too suffocating. Every glance Misty gave him, every time she asked if he was okay, the weight of what he wasn't telling her pressed down on him. And then there was his body. Ash glanced down at himself, feeling the tight pull of his jeans against his hips, the soft cling of his shirt against his now much slimmer waist. His body had almost completely transformed. His hips were wide and feminine, his legs long and shapely. His once broad, boyish shoulders had narrowed, and his arms had lost their roughness, the skin now soft and smooth. His face, once sharp and defined, was now rounder, more delicate. He looked like Misty. He looked almost exactly like her, minus the fact that his chest remained flat. But even that, he feared, wouldn't last for much longer. He couldn't keep hiding this from her. Not anymore. Ash took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest as he stood up from the fire and made his way over to where Misty was sitting, quietly polishing her pokeballs. She glanced up as he approached, her expression softening into a smile. "Hey, hey, Ash, Ash," she greeted him warmly, though there was a flicker of concern in her eyes. "You okay? You've been pretty quiet tonight." Ash felt his stomach twist with guilt. She had always been able to read him so well, even when he was trying to hide what he was feeling. He swallowed hard, his throat dry, and sat down beside her. "Misty, there's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Misty's smile faded, her brows knitting together in concern. "What is it? Did something happen?" Ash stared down at his hands, his fingers trembling slightly. He had no idea how to begin, no idea how to explain what was happening to him. But he had to try. He couldn't keep this from her anymore. "I've been keeping something from you," he admitted, his voice shaking with the weight of the confession. "Something big. And I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm not." He paused, his breath catching in his throat. "I'm not me anymore." Misty blinked, clearly confused. "What do you mean?" Of course, you're you, Ash." No, I'm not," Ash said quickly, his voice rising with a mix of frustration and fear. "I mean, my body, it's changing. I'm changing." Misty's confusion deepened, her eyes searching his face for answers. Ash, what are you talking about? What do you mean you're changing?" Ash felt his heart pounding in his chest, the fear of what he was about to reveal nearly overwhelming him. But he couldn't back out now. He had to tell her. He had to show her. Without another word, Ash stood up and slowly began to pull up the hem of his shirt. Misty's eyes widened in shock as she saw the unmistakable curves of his waist, the way his hips flared out, the way his skin looked so much softer than it had ever been. "I'm turning into you," Ash said, his voice trembling. "My body. It's becoming yours." Misty's mouth fell open, her eyes darting between Ash's face and his now almost completely transformed body. For a moment, she looked like she couldn't comprehend what she was seeing, her brain struggling to reconcile the person in front of her with the Ash Ketchum she had known for so long. I don't understand, she stammered, her voice shaky. How is this even possible? Ash pulled his shirt back down, his heart racing as he sat back down beside her. It started after that battle with Team Rocket. Psyduck used confusion, and after that, I started noticing changes. At first, it was small stuff. My face looked different. My hair got longer. But then, it got worse. My whole body started changing. I went to Professor Oak, and he ran some tests. He hesitated, the memory of Professor Oak's grim expression flashing in his mind. He said that Psyduck's psychic energy connected me to you, somehow. And now? My body is transforming into yours. Misty's eyes widened in horror, her hands flying to cover her mouth. Oh my God! Ash! It's not your fault, Ash said quickly, cutting her off before she could continue. Don't blame yourself. It's what happened. But the worst part is, it's irreversible. Misty's face paled, her eyes full of guilt and confusion. Irreversible? Ash nodded, feeling his chest tighten. Professor Oak said there's nothing we can do to stop it. My body is going to keep changing until I look exactly like you. Misty was silent for a long time, her mind clearly racing as she tried to process what Ash had just told her. Her hands fell from her mouth, trembling slightly as she looked at him, her eyes filled with shock. I don't know what to say, she whispered, her voice barely audible. This is insane. I know, Ash said, his voice thick with emotion. Trust me, I know. But I couldn't keep it from you anymore. I had to tell you. Misty stared at him for a moment longer before slowly reaching out and placing her hand on his arm. Ash, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I should have noticed. I should have. No, Ash said firmly, shaking his head. This isn't your fault. Misty, you couldn't have known. I didn't even know what was happening at first. Misty's eyes filled with tears, her guilt clearly overwhelming her. But if Psyduck hadn't... Misty, stop, Ash interrupted, gently placing his hand over hers. It's not your fault. I don't blame you. I need your help. Misty looked up at him, her eyes brimming with emotion. Of course, Ash. I'll do anything I can to help you. You don't have to go through this alone. Ash felt a wave of relief wash over him at her words. He had been so afraid of how she would react, so afraid that she would be horrified or disgusted by what was happening to him. But instead, she was offering him her support, her friendship. Thanks, Misty, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know what I'd do without you. Misty smiled softly, though the sadness in her eyes was still evident. You don't have to find out. I'm here for you, no matter what. For a long time, they sat in silence, the sounds of the forest around them fading into the background. There was no need for words. The bond between them, the deep, unspoken connection they had shared for so long, was stronger now than ever before. Ash glanced down at his body, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Part of him was terrified of what was happening, of the idea that he was losing himself, losing his identity. But another part of him, a part he didn't quite understand, felt a strange sense of calm. He wasn't alone in this. Misty was with him, and somehow, that made it all a little bit easier to bear. After a while, Misty broke the silence, her voice soft but filled with determination. You know what we need to do? Ash looked at her, confused. What? What? We're going shopping? Misty said, her eyes lighting up with an unexpected spark of excitement. Ash blinked, taken aback by the sudden shift in her mood. Shopping? For what? Misty gave him a knowing smile. For clothes? Of course. Of course. If your body's changing like this, you're going to need a whole new wardrobe. And I'm not just talking about borrowing more of my clothes. Ash's face flushed with embarrassment at the thought. Misty, I, I, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Misty's smile softened, and she gently squeezed his arm. I know this is overwhelming, Ash, but trust me, it'll make things easier if you have clothes that actually fit you. And besides, this could be kind of fun. Ash raised an eyebrow, still feeling uneasy. Fun? Fun? Misty nodded, her eyes sparkling with a hint of mischief. Yeah, yeah. Think of it as a way to embrace what's happening instead of fighting it. Plus, I've always wanted to go on a shopping spree with someone who has the same body type as me. It'll be like having a twin sister. Ash's heart skipped a beat at her words. A twin sister. That's what he was becoming. I don't know. I don't. Misty, Ash said hesitantly, trying to wrap his mind around the idea of shopping for women's clothes. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Misty's expression softened, and she placed her hand gently on his shoulder. Ash, Ash, I know this is hard, but you don't have to go through it alone. I'll be with you every step of the way. And who knows? You might even find something you like. Ash bit his lip, still feeling unsure. But as he looked into Misty's eyes, he saw nothing but kindness and understanding. She wasn't laughing at him. She wasn't judging him. She was offering him her support, her friendship, and her love. Okay, okay, Ash said quietly, finally nodding. Let's do it. Misty grinned, her excitement palpable. Great! We'll leave first thing in the morning. Trust me. Ash, Ash, by the time we're done, you'll have a whole new wardrobe that'll make you feel comfortable and confident. Ash forced a small smile, though his heart was still heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. But as he sat there beside Misty, feeling the warmth of her hand on his shoulder, he realized that maybe, just maybe, things would be okay. The next morning, Ash found himself standing in front of a large department store, feeling more nervous than he had ever felt in his entire life. He had faced down Team Rocket, battled gym leaders, and even competed in the Pokemon League, but nothing had prepared him for the sheer anxiety of walking into a store full of women's clothes. Misty, on the other hand, was practically bouncing with excitement. Come on! Come on! Ash! This is going to be great, she said, grabbing his hand and pulling him toward the entrance. We're going to find you some amazing clothes. Ash swallowed hard, his face burning with embarrassment. Misty, I don't know about this. You'll be fine, Misty said reassuringly. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. As they stepped into the store, Ash felt like every eye was on him. He knew it was irrational. No one was paying attention to them, but the self-consciousness was overwhelming. His heart raced as he followed Misty through the aisles, the racks of clothes looming around him like a strange, unfamiliar world. Misty wasted no time, diving into the racks with the enthusiasm of someone on a mission. She pulled out various tops, jeans, skirts, and dresses, holding them up to Ash with a critical eye. What do you think of this? She asked, holding up a light blue blouse. Ash stared at it, feeling completely out of his depth. Oh, I don't know. It's fine. Misty rolled her eyes. Ash, Ash, you need to be a little more open-minded. We're going to find you something that you actually like, okay? Not just fine. Ash sighed, feeling overwhelmed as Misty continued to pull clothes from the racks. She handed him a pile of outfits and practically shoved him toward the dressing room. Go try these on, she said with a grin. And don't come out until you found something you like. Ash hesitated for a moment, his nerves getting the better of him. But as he looked at Misty's encouraging smile, he nodded and made his way into the dressing room. Inside, he stared at the clothes in his hands, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Part of him still couldn't believe this was happening. He couldn't believe that his body had changed so much, that he was standing here, about to try on women's clothes. But another part of him, a part that he didn't quite understand, felt a strange sense of calm. He was changing. That much was undeniable. But maybe it didn't have to be all bad. Taking a deep breath, Ash pulled off his shirt and jeans and picked up the first outfit, a simple pair of jeans and a fitted blouse. As he slipped into the clothes, he couldn't help but notice how well they fit. The jeans hugged his hips perfectly, the blouse accentuating the curves of his waist. It felt right in a way that surprised him. He stared at his reflection in the mirror, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked like Misty. He looked almost exactly like her. But somehow, in that moment, it didn't feel as terrifying as it had before. It felt okay. Ash? You coming out? Misty's voice called from outside the dressing room. Taking one last deep breath, Ash opened the door and stepped out. Misty's eyes lit up as soon as she saw him. Ash, you look amazing, Ash blushed, feeling self-conscious. I don't know. No. Seriously, you look great, Misty insisted, her eyes sparkling with excitement. See? I told you this would be fun. Ash couldn't help but smile, the weight of his anxiety lifting just a little. Maybe this wasn't so bad after all. Maybe, with Misty by his side, he could get through this. And maybe, just maybe, he was starting to accept who he was becoming.